The Complete Works of Swami Vivekananda, Volume 3, Section 4, Reply to the Address of Welcome at Madras. When the Swami Vivekananda arrived at Madras, an address of welcome was presented to him by the Madras Reception Committee. It read as following: Reverse Swamin, on behalf of your Hindu co-religionists in Madras, we offer you a most hearty welcome on the occasion of your return from the religious mission in the West. Our object in approaching you with this address is not the performance of any mere formal or ceremonial function. We come to offer you the love of our hearts and to give expressions of our feeling of thankfulness for the service which you, by the grace of God, has been able to render to the great cause of the truth by proclaiming India's lofty religious ideals. When the Parliament of Religion was organized at Chicago, some of our countrymen felt naturally anxious that our noble and ancient religion should be worthily represented therein and properly expounded to the American nation and through them to the West world at large. It was then our privilege to meet you and to realize once again what has so often proved true in the history of the nation, that with the hour arises the man who is to help forward the cause of truth. When you undertook the represent Hinduism at the Parliament of Religion, most of us felt from what we had known of your greatmost gift that the cause of Hinduism would be able upheld by its representative in the memorable religious assembly. Your representation of the doctrine of Hinduism at once clear, correct, and authoritatively not only produced a remarkable impression at the Parliament of Religion itself, but has also led a number of men and women, even in the foreign land, to realize that out of the foundation of Indian spirituality, refreshing drops of immortal life and love may be taken so as to bring about a large plural and holier evolution of humankind or humanity than has had been witnessed on this globe of ours. We are particularly thankful to you for having called the attention of the representative to the world's greatest religion, of the characteristic Hindu doctrine of the harmony and brotherhood of religion. No longer is it possible for really enlightening and enlisting men to insist that truth and holiness are the exclusive positions of any particular locality or body of a man or system of doctrine and discipline, or to told that any faith or philosophy will survive to the exclusive and destruction of all others. In your own happy language, which brings out fully the sweet harmony in the heart of Bhagavad Gita, the whole world of religions is only a traveling, a coming up of different man and woman through various conditions and circumstances to same goal. Had you contented yourself with simply discharging this high and holy duty, and trusted to your care, even then your Hindu co-religionist would have been glad to recognize with joy and thankfulness the inestimable value of your work. But in making your way into Western countries, you have also been the bearer of the message of light and peace to the whole of the mankind, based on the old teachings of India, religion eternal. In thanking you for all that you have done in the way of upholding the profound rationality of the religion of Vedant, it gives us great pleasure to allude to the great task you have in view of establishing an active mission with permanent centers for the propagation of our religion and philosophy, the undertaking to which you propose to devote your energies is worthy of the holy tradition you represent and worthy too of the spirit of the great Guru who has inspired your life and its same. We hope and trust that it may be given to us also to associate ourselves with you in this noble work. We fervently pray to Him, who is the all knowing and all merciful Lord of the universe, to bestow on you long life and long health and full health, and to bless your labors with that crown of glory and success which ever deserves to shine on the brow of the immortal truth. Next was read Next was read the following address from the Maharaja of Khetri. Your Holiness, I wish to take this early opportunity of your arrival and reception at Madras to express my feeling of joy and pleasure on your safe return to India and to offer my heartfelt congratulations on the great success which has attained your unselfish effort in the Western lands where it is the boast of the highest intellect that not an inch of ground once conquered by science has has ever been reconquered by religion. Although indeed science has hardly ever claimed to oppose true religion, this holy land of Aryavarta has been singularly fortunate in having been able to secure so worth a representative of her sages at the Parliament of Religion held at Chicago, and it is entirely due to your wise enterprise and enthusiasm that the Western world has come to understand what an exhaustible store of spirituality India has been told today. Your labor have now proved beyond the possibility of doubt that the contradiction of the world's numerous creed are all reconciled in the universal light of the Vedant, and that all the peoples of the world have need to understand and practically realize the great truth that unity is variety, is nature's plan in the evolution of unity is variety is nature's plan in the evolution of universe, and that only by harmony and brotherhood among religions and by mutual toleration and help can the mission and destiny of humanity be accomplished. Under your high and holy auspicious and inspiring influence of your lofty teachings, we of the present generation have the privilege to witnessing the inaugura- inauguration of a new era in the world's history in which bio bigotry, hatred and conflict may, I hope, cease and peace, sympathy and love reign among them. And I, in common with my people, pray that the blessing of God may rest on you and your labors. When the addresses had been read, the Swami left the hall and mounted to the box seat of the carriage in the waiting. Owing to the intense enthusiasm of the large crowd established to welcome him, the Swami was only able to make the following short reply, postponing his reply proper to the future occasions. Man proposes and God disposes. It was proposed that the addresses and the replies should be carried in the English fashion, but here God disposes. I am speaking to the scattered audience from the chariot in the Gita's fashion. Thankful we are, therefore, that it should have happened so. It gives a zest to the speech and strength to what I am going to tell you. I do not know whether my voice will reach all of you, but I will try my best. I never before had an opportunity of addressing a large open air meeting. The wonderful kindness, the fervent and enthusiastic joy with which I have been received from Colombo to Madras and seen likely to be received all over India. I have passed even my most sanguine expectations, but that only makes me glad, for it proves the assertion which I have made again and again in the past that as each nation has one ideal, has its vitality, as each nation has one particular guru which is to become its own, so religion is the peculiarity of the growth of Indian minds. In other words, of the world, religion is the one of the many consideration. In fact, it is a minor occupation. In England, for instance, in England, for instance, religion is a part of national policy. English church belong to the ruling class and as such, whether they believe in it or not, they all support it, thinking that it is their church. Every gentleman and every lady is expected to belong to that church. It is a sign of gentility. So with the other countries, there is a great national power. Either it is represented by politics or it is represented by the intellectual pursuit. Either it is represented by the militarism or the commercialism. There, the heart of the nation beats, and the religion is the one of the many secondary ornamental things which that nation po- possesses. Here in India, it is a religion that forms the very core of the national heart. It is the backbone, the bedrock, and the foundation upon which the nation edifice has been built. Politics, powers, and even intellectual forms of secondary consideration here. Religion, therefore, is the one consideration in India. I have been told 100 times to the want of information there is among the masses of the Indian people, and that it is true. Landing in Colombo, I found not one of them had heard of political upheaving going on in Europe, the changes, the downfall of the ministers, and so forth. Not one of them have heard of what is meant by socialism and anarchism, and of this and that change in the political atmosphere of Europe. But that there was a sannyasi from India sent over the Parliament of Religion, and that he had achieved some sort of success and had become known to every man and woman and child in Ceylon. It proves that there is no lack of information nor lack of desire for information, where it is of the character that suits them when it falls in line with the necessity of their lives. Politics and all these things never formed a necessity in the Indian life, but religion and spirituality have been the one condition upon which it lived and thrived and has got to live in the future. The two great problems are being decided by the nation of the world. India has taken up one side and the rest of the world has taken the other side. And the problem is this: who is to survive? What makes one nation survive and other die? Should love survive or hatred? Should enjoyment survive or renunciation? Should matter survive or spirit? Is the struggle of life. We think, as our ancestors did, always back in the prehistorical age, where even traditions cannot pierce the gloom of that past. There our glorious ancestors have taken up their sides of the problem and have thrown the challenge to the world. Our solution is renunciation, giving up fearlessness and love. These are the fittest to survive. Giving up senses making makes a nation survive. As a proof of this, here is a history today telling us of mushroom nations rising and falling almost every century, starting up from nothingness, making vicious play for a few days and then melting. This big, gigantic race, which had to grapple with some of the greatest problems of the misfortune, danger, vicissitudes, such has never fell upon the head of any other nation of the world, survives because it has taken the side of renunciation, for without renunciation, how can there be religion? Europe Europe is trying to solve the other side of the problem as to how much a man can have and how much more power a man can possess by hook or by crook, by some means or others. Competition, cruel, cold and heartless is the law of Europe. Our law is caste, the breaking of competition, checking for its forces, mitigating the cruelties, smoothing the passage of human soul through the mystery of life. At this stage, the crowd became so unmanageable that at this stage, the crowd became so unmanageable that Swami could not make himself heard to advantage. He therefore ended his address with these words: Friends, I am very much pleased with your enthusiasm. It is marvelous. Do not think that I am displeased with you at all. I am, on the other hand, intensely pleased at the show of enthusiasm. That is what is required: tremendous enthusiasm. Only make it permanent, keep it up. Let not the fire die out. We want to work out great things in India. For that, I require your help. Such enthusiasm is necessary. It is impossible to hold this meeting any longer. I thank you very much for the kindness and enthusiastic welcome. In calm moments, we shall have better thoughts and ideas to exchange. And now, for the time, my friends, goodbye. It is impossible to address you on all sides. Therefore, you must content yourself this evening with merely seeing me. I will reserve my speech for some other occasion. I thank you very much for the enthusiastic Welcome.